Hi everyone, this is Sherry Rice Smith for EFTforchristians.com. Today what I would like to talk a little bit about is the ACE study, which is Adverse Childhood Experiences. You're going to hear a lot, and you do now already hear a lot about this specific study. Um, it was it was done about 1995 through 1997 by a group of researchers from Kaiser Permanente, and I think they did most of it in Southern California. Um, I think I said 17,000 participants. And what happened and how this study came about was a Dr. Folletti ran an obesity clinic, and he had a lot of his patients did well, lost a lot of weight, but they would drop out. And he really couldn't quite figure out, if they were having such good success, what would cause them to just walk away from the program. So this started some head scratching and some thinking about what was actually going on behind the scenes in the minds of all these people. So they decided to go ahead and do this study and figure out what was happening. So today what I want to know is there appears to be some relationship between childhood emotional issues and aging. And for us baby boomers, that's pretty big. I know that Dr. McCullough does a lot of studies and has research backing him up where he explains that telomeres, which are little end caps, I want to call them plastic, but I'm sure they're not, little end caps on the end of chromosomes that keep them from shortening and aging and unraveling, seem to stay in place with certain types of exercise. You keep your growth hormones in place, and therefore the aging process seems to be quieted down and obviously kept at bay. So what's going on here? So when Dr. Folletti did this, they thought up 10 questions. Most of those in the study were people who had insurance, so there was a pretty closely equal division between male and female. 74% of them were white. Most of them were 60 and over in age, and most of them had college educations or better. So this should have been, if money and education and good food do you well, this should have been a group of fairly healthy adult Americans. But things turned out a little bit differently. So he asked specific questions like, he wanted to know specifically physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. Did that happen to you? Were you any physical and emotional neglect? Was there someone in your household with mental illness? Was there anyone in your household who was in jail or incarcerated? Had you ever witnessed your mother being treated violently in any sort of manner? And was there any substance abuse in the household, being drug and alcohol, probably mostly? And was there divorce? Those questions led to a fairly astounding pile of statistics where they scored it. If you had 4 or higher, it pretty much showed that you were going to have a fairly high level of chronic illness. If you had 6 or more of those, you would probably die 20 years sooner than anyone else in the study. The higher the score, the more the risk. They figured in that study 64% of adults had at least one of those, and you had an 84% chance of having 2 or 3 or more if you had one. There was a third of the people who admitted to none, and again, some people, even though it was anonymous, they're not going to admit to anything that they think they don't want people to know about. The higher the score, the risk led to higher levels of obesity, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or COPD, stroke, depression, suicide, and broken bones. It also led to higher smoking, higher alcohol intake, and drug use. The higher the score led to less graduation rates, more job loss, more time lost from work, and basically kind of overall less achievement. So they were trying to figure out how these all correlated. Today, my question is they didn't really ask other questions, such as, how about we'd see any violence outside of a home. How about any type of natural disasters? Those don't seem to be. How about any incidents of multiple hospitalizations? They didn't discuss bullying. They didn't discuss seeing a sibling abused. And they never even asked the question of a death of a close family member. What happens if you had a sibling die? It did say something about a loss of a parent, so perhaps they didn't use the word death. I don't believe in the original questions, but that may be an implied. Perhaps your grandmother lived with you and you were very dependent on her and you lost her. So I believe that there probably, in my opinion, and it's a humble one, is that there's probably multiple other questions that could be asked that could be included into this that, would probably raise a lot of people's scores a lot higher than what those very specific 10 questions are. If you're curious about this, look up a study and they'll give you the questions. You can actually grade your own self on them and you'll know exactly where you fall into this. Some newer studies now appear to show that there is a possible, I'm not saying there absolutely is, but there's a possible connection between these childhood adversity and our aging. And that goes back again to what I had mentioned in the very beginning of this video about the telomere caps. They seem to unravel with the more childhood emotional and physical and sexual issues that you had, shortening, and telomere shortening is as they shorten, you age, and as you age, obviously you're closer to death. So it appears that seems to be that there's a pretty good connection to that. Also, not only does the adversity set up, but also they talked about anyone who had early childhood adverse reactions, or not adverse reactions, adverse experiences, that you tended to begin smoking earlier, having sex earlier, drug use earlier, more teenage pregnancies, and then a greater chance of suicide. So what does this mean for us today? I think what it's beginning to show that there is a possibility that we really do need tapping, maybe even more than we ever imagined. So many of us have childhood stories of, horror stories of things that happened to us, and others just, they'd rather not talk about it. It's kind of like the World War II vets. Some of them will discuss it, most of them won't. They don't want to tell you what happened. They don't want to tell you what was seen. They just don't want to talk about it. So we know tapping decreases our stress. We know in tapping that we often go back and try to pull out the emotional underpinnings of any of these early childhood experiences. Obviously the negative ones, the good ones we're not too worried about. Good ones are good. It may be that the research will eventually show that by pulling out the emotional underpinnings of these early childhood events, that maybe the telomeres will stay intact longer. How much tapping do we need? How long do we need to tap? That's research that I think is going to start becoming, questions that are going to start coming to the forefront. We're going to have to start deciding, how much is it going to take to undo the damage done from all of this emotional and physical and sexual abuse that some of us have experienced, early on. I think it's going to get interesting. I really do. And I'm hoping I live another 150 years. I want to watch all of this change. So again, keep praying, keep tapping, and just let God have your early events. It's so much easier now to let them go than it was 10, 20 years ago, when all we had was to be able to tell a friend how badly we felt. And now as we tap, we can change our physiology and allow God to heal us. So if you have any questions about this video or any other video, please email me at eftforchristians@gmail.com. If you have ideas for videos, email me at that same address. Please visit my website, eftforchristians.com. There's a resource page. Go look at some of the offerings I have. There's lots and lots and lots to read. If you are a reader, you like science, email me. I can give you a reading list of other books. They're fairly inexpensive. You can purchase on Amazon. And you can really bone up on what's going on here. It's pretty exciting. It's getting more and more interesting. There are over 100 studies now about the efficacy of EFT. Most of them show that it is extremely efficacious. I think it's worth a try. What you're out is a little bit of time. Sometimes you're out a little bit of money because you do need to hire a practitioner if you do have some of these horrific early childhood events. Okay, God bless, take care, and we'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.